Hey guys, it's Johnny. So as you can see, I'm not at home right now. We've had some really nice weather this afternoon and I decided to go out for a walk. And those of you that follow the channel, you know I've done a couple of blog style videos like this, particularly when I travel, where I take you around, I talk about stuff, and I also show you a bit of what's going on around as well. So as it's been a while, I thought why not bring the camera out with me, take you guys along with me as I enjoy this beautiful nature and tell you some finance stories at the same time. And so the stories I have for today's video are two situations where an emergency fund saved me and one situation that hasn't happened yet, but if it happens, an emergency fund will also save me as well. So let's go for a walk. Alright guys, so as you can see, lovely sunny afternoon here in my city where I live. I've forgotten to take my hay fever pill as well, and it's right in the middle of the hay fever season, so we'll see how that goes down whilst I do the video as well. Anyways, the first time I needed to use my emergency fund was actually right when I first moved to Madrid, so almost 4 years ago now. And at the time what I had technically wasn't an emergency fund, it was just a build-up of cash that I'd saved up over time, but I hadn't really put to use through investing and whatnot. Nevertheless, it was there and it was available for when I needed it. And so basically what happened was I was in the UK for a few months. I was supposed to be in the UK for 6 months as I moved into my new job for onboarding, training, getting to know the team and everything, and then moved to Madrid. Whilst I was in the UK, there was a general election. Boris Johnson won, and he decided that he was going to get Brexit done within the next 2 months. So that was going to potentially throw a spanner in the works for me moving to Spain. So what I decided to do as a result of that was essentially bring forward my move-in date to Spain 3 months. Something that you don't often think about when you move to a new country, kind of the initial financial outlay is quite considerable. So whereas I thought, I had 6 months to get things together, get everything in order, I pretty much overnight had to start planning a move to Madrid and, start looking at apartments, arrange accommodation for while I was there, deposits, furniture, utensils for the kitchen, transport passes, etc, etc, etc. And so because I had all this cash on hand, but I hadn't put it to use, this was perfect really, because it was there, it was available. I didn't have to stress about how am I going to pay for X, Y, or Z, because the money was there and it was ready to put to good use. So amongst all the stress of moving and everything that goes with it, then the financial stress was kind of eliminated because I had those funds available on reserve. Look at the park. This is where we are. Everyone's out for a nice afternoon walk after work, just chilling. Let's have a walk in the field. Let's see what's in the field. I know it's in the field. I've been here before. Anyways, gonna take you guys here. This is a really nice spot, as you can see. A lot of nature. Just chill out. Great place to go for a walk. Alright, the second occasion where my emergency fund saved me is essentially happening right now. So with my apartment that I bought, as I've been doing renovations, there are a couple of electrical issues that have come up. None that were particularly significant at the time. I didn't think anything of it, the odd power cut here and there because I'd changed, a light switch or a plug socket. But then it started to happen a bit more frequently and I had a few technicians out and essentially, the entire electrical wiring of the house is going to need redoing. And they were replaced 10 years ago, so they should in theory last a little bit longer. But because it's electricity and electrical stuff, I really didn't want to take a risk. P.S. Shout out to the technician who came, I kid you not, who had a look and said, not sure what it is, but it doesn't look good, and then left. Funny times, huh? And so a full electrical recabling in my apartment is not going to be cheap by any means. Fortunately, again, I have a real dedicated emergency fund on hand, which I can put to use this time to solve this situation. You might want to argue, well, can't this wait? Can't you save up for it? But when it comes to something like electricity, given the safety implications and the possible safety risks, it's something that me personally I wouldn't want to wait any longer. It's something that I would definitely consider an emergency and something that should be solved as quick as possible. So we're in a nice big open field now. See the mountains over there. It's all looking nice. Super quiet. And so the last scenario, which hasn't happened to me yet, fortunately, hopefully never happens, and I hope it never happens to anybody watching as well, is if you end up in a situation where your regular income is interrupted for whatever reason, such as having to leave your job, being unable to work for a period of time, if you lose your job, if your living circumstances change in a moment's notice. Contrary to the first two examples I gave, where essentially you need to spend a big amount of money and you pull from the pot and throw it at the problem and it's solved. In this instance, what you're essentially using your emergency fund for is acting as a bridge until you get your income stabilized again. So until you find new employment, until you're able to boost your income again, then that emergency fund can really come in handy and help you there. So now we've talked a bit about the situations in which you might use an emergency fund. What are some basic ground rules that you should have for an emergency fund? Well, it should be easy to access, first of all. It shouldn't be, invested in a stock market. It shouldn't be locked away in a deposit that you can't access. It should be in a, fairly easy to access either current or savings account. If you can find something that gives you a bit of interest in return, then great. If not, then I would say don't worry too much about it, because you're not going to worry about a few percent of interest lost when you need to pull out money from it to solve a crisis. How much should you have in your emergency fund? Well, finance experts generally recommend 3 to 6 months of expenses in there. But again, if you're self-employed, or if your income fluctuates or varies a lot, then 12 months, up to 12 months might be even better. You also got to think about how many people you're financially responsible for. If there's just yourself, if there's a partner, if there are children, etc., then you want to take that into account when doing your emergency fund calculations as well. And last of all, it really needs to be emergency use only. Your emergency fund is specifically for that, emergencies. If you want to buy, something new, like the latest piece of tech, or a new pair of shoes or something, ideally you'd save up for that with your money and spend it, not touching your emergency fund. The only instance where this might be acceptable is if, for example, it's an essential piece of equipment that you need for sports, or if it's a laptop that you need for work or something like that. Then that could be considered an emergency. At the end of the day, you never know when an emergency can come up. I talked to you about some of the bigger ones I've had, but small emergencies also come up all the time. Like, for example, I needed to go to the dentist for some treatment last year, and that, it wasn't to the magnitude of what I've talked about in this video, but still, it's a few €100 that, I didn't expect to spend, but had to, because of the health implications if I didn't go to the dentist. And there's other instances as well. I was really trying to think of some off the top of my head out here, but the dentist example is the only one that comes to mind right now. But you get the idea, just having money set aside for situations like this, it really takes out one extra level of stress that you could have potentially had. The financial stress is gone. If it's a problem that requires some money to fix, then you don't have to worry about where you're going to find it. You know that your emergency fund's there, and at 99 times out of 100, that money's going to cover whatever financial emergency you have. So that's all for this video, guys. Hope you enjoyed this short walk with me in this beautiful nature around me, and I hope you found the video information, of course, informative as well. Leave a comment and let me know, have you got an emergency fund, and have you ever had to dip into it and use it? Till next time, I'll see you on the next one, and let's get this money.